We are live. Hello, everyone. Lord Hellespont V here, your favorite pseudo-intellectual, as appointed by your pontiff. And I'm here today with one of the most esteemed members of this community, of the Archiverse. He is sometimes misunderstood and mischaracterized by people who take him more seriously than he does himself. He's here for the love of the game. He's here for the sport. He is a Rolex man, as you are soon to discover. If the pontiff is dressed in his white papal silk, this is a man who is attired in the red garb of a cardinal, perhaps colored such by the blood he has extracted from the pontiff's eternal enemies. Plastic, welcome to the channel.
Oh, hi, thanks, Lord. Much appreciated. Yeah, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm so honored to have you as my inaugural collection review. You're the first, and I hope it won't be the last.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Pleasure is mine. So plastic in many ways is defined by his loyalty. Um, and I think his collection really speaks well for plastic in terms of how loyal he has been to a particular brand. And it will not surprise you if I said that that brand was Rolex. Rolex.
Rolex, please.
Rolex, please. So this is our first piece. It is a Submariner date. Plastic. Is this the watch that started a luxury watch collection for you?
Yeah, mate, this is the inaugural Rolex that kicked it all off. So I had an Omega at the time, Planet Ocean, 44 mil or 45 mil, whatever. And I had a Breitling Super Ocean Steelfish, I think it was. And mate, I enjoyed those watches, but they just weren't fulfilling me. And I discovered Rolex. I'd just been flicking through a few websites and just thought, you know what, I need a Rolex. And when this watch came up on the Vintage Watch Co site, that's where I bought it. It had a hold sign on it, so someone apparently had already rung up and put a hold sign on, but it wasn't sold. So what I did to get the piece, because it was under retail, still under warranty, brand new basically.
Mhm.
This is back in the day when Rolex Steel Sports was under retail,
There was such a
and there was a time. This is 2016, my friend. So under retail, brand new, barely worn, and I wanted it so bad. What I did was I just transferred the money. I sent an email and I said, look, this may have a hold, but it's not sold. So I'm transferring the money. Refund me if you don't want to sell it to me. And of course, the next day, they had no choice. They sold it to me, and I had my first Rolex. And I couldn't stop wearing it, Lord. I thought, fuck, this is a great watch, man. And yeah, so I soon sold the other two pieces not long after. I was done. Once I had the Rolex, I didn't care for the other watches.
amazing. I love the story because, it's that's a negotiation tactic, isn't it? Here's the money, take my money, uh, and give me the watch. I know you have it on hold, but
Yep.
you can see there's no one else who wants this watch more than I do, and I'm here to pay for it.
It was
And
a time. yeah, it was the sort of the beginning of the madness, I guess, because it was slightly under retail. You couldn't get them in the shop. You'd
Mhm.
walk in, they were never there. They'd say, "Oh yeah, you can put down expression of interest," but which I had done, and I hadn't received that phone call. So exactly, mate. I thought I'll just I'll go balls in. I'll put everything on the line. If they don't want me to have it, they'll just say, okay, the money's back in your account. But no, I got the watch made, and not long after, I got a phone call from Rolex, um, AD in Brisbane, and said, "Would you like a no date sub?" And I said, "No, I've already got the date." And I actually got offered a no date sub about a month later, and I had to knock it back because I had the date sub. And if I'd known then what I know now, I would have said, "Yeah, I'll take the date sub."
Yeah, of course. But that's always how it happens, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I mean,
Oh yeah.
both in the sense that you get the watch and then you get another call where they secured another example, and there are always going to be deals that you regret not taking, watches that you regret perhaps getting rid of. Another thing that I like about that story, of course, it's one of those places that we came to know through the pontiff, through His Grace Archibald Chesterfield III. This is the Vintage Watch Co. in Brisbane Arcades, right?
This is the one, mate. It's an iconic store, and to be absolutely fair to Archie, um, with I was watching his channel, but I wasn't a devotee, and I wasn't anywhere near part of the show or the live streams. In fact, they were really quite new back then. The live streams. I don't even think he may have been doing them via Google Hangouts and things like that, but it wasn't a big part of his life. And
Yeah.
but I did see the ads, I did see the comments, and I did see the references to Vintage Watch Co. So his endorsements made you feel safe. Okay, I'll go in here. It's obviously a trustworthy place, and mate, I've bought many pieces there since, um, and it's a wonderful shop, good staff, great owner, and heavily endorsed by Archie himself. So it's fantastic.
And of course, it really resonates with one of the biggest and best vintage watch dealers in the world, which is the Vintage Watch Co. in the Burlington Arcades in London. So
Oh,
that's, I don't know how and if they are at all related, but I always pictured it in the same way because I know the place in London, but I've never been to Australia. So I don't have the chance to know it in a physical way, but it was, of course, Archie's endorsement that made me think of it in the same positive way. So here we have basically the quintessential Rolex. I have a no date sub, as some of you know, which is probably the minimalist choice. But Plastic is a man of utility. He's a man of function. I think he likes having a date on his watches. Would you agree, Plastic?
oh yeah, it had to have a date. So the no date was offered. I had my name down for a date sub. The no date was offered. Obviously, look, one's in. Would you like it? And I regretfully now I said no. If I'd said yes, it would have kicked off a buy history with that AD, and things may have been different now in my ongoing journey to buy Rolex.
The journey, the journey. It's maybe we'll talk a little bit more about those relationship with authorized dealers and why you went your own way instead. But this is a beautiful way to start a collection. Of course, it was in a bygone time now, more than 5 years ago, where you could still get these pieces at retail or right below retail.
Mm,
Nowadays, you would be extremely lucky to chance upon a Rolex that is anywhere near retail. But if you're going to have one Rolex watch, why not have a Submariner date?
that's exactly what I thought, Lord. A subby date, iconic. does everything a man needs. You don't really need any other watch. That's one and done, to be honest. And well, it was one and done in my mind at that point. Okay. Uh,
I know.
Now it's
I've told
different
myself,
story. Different story.
I've told myself many lies, Plastic. I
Yes.
know the story. I'm familiar with the experience. But I also like the fact that it kind of displaced for you other watches, not because I have any hate towards any other brands, but how this kind of took its pride of place almost immediately.
It did. It cemented the love for the brand. It. I have no interest in any other brand except that one watch that we discussed yesterday. That perhaps in 5 or 10 years' time, I'll consider to get. That, of course, being the king of the watch brands. But we'll talk to that at the end of the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm just going through them by the order you sent me, if you don't mind.
The
This
order
is a
may be a bit jumbled. I'm happy to
then
single out the next one.
okay. Please tell me then which one I should go with.
I
You
won't
tell me
include
which
what
one.
I won't include watches that I have Rolexes that other Rolexes I have bought. They will form part of the narrative once I get to a certain piece. Okay, but in this case, I will discuss a Datejust 2 diamond dial two tone, which was technically the third Rolex, but
Mhm.
for the purpose of this story and what we have in our possession now, we'll call it the second. Okay.
So this is a
So
41 millimeter, of course. They just two.
correct. Correct. So this is a Datejust 2. This was produced prior to the Datejust 41.
Mhm.
41 mil, slightly chunkier proportions compared to a Datejust 41. Um, but beautiful watch. And again, I got this watch full set complete, like the first one. Got this from a second-hand dealer. In Australia, we have pawn shops called cash converters,
Mhm.
and I picked this up at cash converters for my lovely wife because she had tried on a 40 mil and much preferred to have a larger watch on her wrist. So we got this for her at 50% off retail,
Mm.
full set complete, and this became my wife's watch. Beautiful watch.
It really is, and it's. I think in a way, as as conventional as a two-tone Datejust is, this watch, of course, is distinguished by its diamond dial and also by having a two-tone oyster bracelet rather than a Jubilee bracelet, which is more common, of course, with Datejusts and especially with two-tone Datejusts.
That configuration was very popular with the Datejust too. Back in the day, you'll see quite a few other of that configuration around. I think even Mr. There's another YouTuber around the place, a guy by the name of Mr. GMT. You may have crossed his path. Not a bad little chap. He tends to spend a lot of time on the other side of the fence, but that's okay. But he also owns one, and I have discussed the configuration with him, and it's pretty much the exact configuration,
Mm.
which was very popular for the Datejust 2 back in the day.
He's the guy who says "Stay sexy."
Yeah, he's the guy that says things like that,
Yeah,
he's a nice little fellow. He used to be extremely loyal to Archie. Um, I know that he popped on the Archie car show recently, and I think it would be lovely if he would find his way back home.
of course. That's what we all aspire to ourselves and what we hope for others too, that they find the right path, the straight path. the one that leads to the one and only. So has this watch over the years stayed sexy, Plastic?
Oh, it's an amazing watch. I my wife has a job where she, you know, works with children and doing lots of things through the day. And basically the watches get dirty. They get occasionally get banged on desks or things. What other watch but a Rolex watch would you want your wife to wear? Um, that
None,
was able to take a beating and back up the next day for more, not
none,
be put away in the safe, but worn as a daily.
none other.
Uh,
I think over the years, of course, there's a lot of marketing, a lot of product placement, and a lot of other things that add to the Rolex mythology. But the fact that they got it right so many decades before some of the other established brands with an airtight, watertight, dust-proof oyster case that stood the test of time, that could take a beating if necessary,
mm,
really, I think, stood them apart amongst their competition. So for any kind of watch, I think that oyster case is always going to stand the test of time.
it's an amazing watch and a little bit big for my wife's wrist, but she loves the size of it. She loves the fact that it has presence, and she's not ashamed to be wearing a Rolex watch and for people to notice it and for kids to notice it because she's very proud of it and she'll happily say, "Yep, that's a Rolex and I love it." And I think that's fantastic, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because look, I for me, at some point, it was a vague idea to see uh, women with especially sports Rolexes. But then again, if you go back in history, it's nothing new. Honor Blackman's character, Pussy Galore,
Mm,
Goldfinger's pilot, of course, wearing a beautiful GMT with a bakelite bezel. And I think a Rolex of any size, really, depending on the occasion, can always look stunning on a woman's wrist. Of course, we have all these things about, like, what is a dress watch, what is a sports watch,
mm,
what is a woman's watch. But a watch that someone goes through life with and makes their own and puts their mark on it, that's their watch. And I'm glad
exactly. Yeah.
I'm glad your wife made this watch hers, and I can certainly imagine this being on the wrist of Mrs. Reverend.
100%. And the beautiful thing is too, I negotiated a discount with that, even though it was less than half price. I was able to get the cash converters to throw in a Xbox that my son had saved up for. So
Mm,
he had given me some money to buy the Xbox. So I was able to give him the money back and give him a free Xbox that day. And he was very grateful. And the wonderful art of negotiation when you're buying a high end piece in a pawn shop is that they will be so happy to move that piece. They will almost bend over backwards to throw in other items at your behest. And it was a wonderful day. Um, they didn't even, you know what, Lord, they didn't even know how to wind it. They didn't even know how to check the movement. And because I had a 3135 in the sub,
yeah,
I was very familiar with the mechanism. I was able to pick it up, give it a whine, have a listen. Everyone knows what the beating heart of a Rolex sounds like, and it was just a beautiful thing to have this deal, a great deal, fall into my lap,
you know,
shall
I
we speak.
I'm so glad we went with this watch as the second in the collection, because once again, you have such a beautiful story that goes with it, which to me defines you as a family man, right? You know, this is a gift you have given to your wife, and
Yes,
even as you were negotiating that deal, you had your son in your mind, and you did something
yes,
for him as well. It's just great.
100%.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good story. No, that was great. So that was the number two uh, on the list I've sent you. Now that's two out of the seven.
The lucky
So
number seven, as I call
yeah,
the
that's
lives.
it.
What would you
Lucky
like
number.
to go with next?
I think we'll just keep them in chronological order. Um, so I think the next one would be the black
Mm,
GMT, the Man in Black.
very nice. Is this the watch that is now in the Rolex Service Center?
Yes, as is the Datejust. So this watch, the Datejust, and um, the Cosmograph are all in for a service.
Hmm.
Um, the Datejust was starting to lose a little bit of time, not badly, but it was not maintaining its power as long as it could. And of course, being over 5 6 years, one feels that a watch needs to be stripped back and given a good a good service, because the watch as well as part of the family. We can't neglect our watches, mate. We have to look after our watches. And the black was another piece that I bought from Vintage Watch Co.
Mm.
Um, I'm very proud to say it was 2018, around the middle of the year, I believe. No, 2018 was the Datejust 2, sorry, and the GMT was around August 2020. Okay, so this watch I paid roughly retail, slightly over what would be considered retail.
Yeah.
Okay, at the time, and it was, I believe they'd been discontinued by then, Lord, because it was after the introduction of the Pepsi.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think these watches had been discontinued in 2019, perhaps. Do you
Yeah.
know off the top of your head?
I'm not actually sure of the exact date that.
No, it's all a blur, isn't it? There's so many weird little introductions and Rolex. This watch I
Not
bought
only
in
that, but
2020.
since the lockdown, honestly, my sense of time has been so broken and disjointed that if I didn't have my watches, I think I would have
Yes.
completely given up on
Well,
being on any sort of frequency, honestly.
I love how you mentioned lockdown, because basically this is what happened, because this was a watch I bought. Now I was never locked down in my job. I but we were. It was in the middle of COVID, or it was during COVID, I guess. Um, it was a watch we bought around June, July of 2020, and COVID was rampant. There's a lot of fear, and you may remember prices had started to go up for watches, and they were unattainable. And this one popped up at about retail, slightly over what it would have been retail at the time. And as soon as it hit the website, Lord, um, I rang up and I did a deal over the phone. I negotiated about $500 off, and I picked this watch up, um, full set, complete. And to my surprise, once I got close to and inspected the watch after I'd negotiated the deal, it was a stick dial. So it was a V serial ceramic black, and they are the only version of that model GMT known to have the stick dial with the ceramic. There are other stick dials pre-ceramic, but of the ceramic variety, that is the only known model, the V serial. So that was a nice little extra that I was able to, yeah, a nice little bonus, shall we say.
And of course, when we say stick dial, we mean that the Roman numeral 2 in GMT Master 2 is like two parallel sticks without any serif
Yes.
markings on them.
Yeah. Did you see the extra photo I sent with that?
With again with the black.
Close
I
up of
don't
the
think
sticks. I'll
I
find
don't
it
have.
now and I'll send it. I'll send it to you. I'll find it now for you. Hang on.
We'll show that as
Just
well.
bear with me.
One thing I want to say about this watch, um, I do like the Coke bezel from the past, and I know the Pepsi bezel is the original bezel insert for the GMT,
Yeah.
as it was designed for the Pan Am pilots as their travel watch. So I do appreciate it as a moment in history and as something definitive of the model, really in its ideal form. But I've always loved the aesthetic of GMT Master with a black bezel. And I'm wearing the Coke now. But one of the things that I first did after I came home with the full set was to sit on eBay and scour it for an authentic black insert, which I found in the UK for the right
Mm,
price, and it's still on its way to me. So I do love this aesthetic, and I think I've told you at some
mm.
point I have now a Rolex watch from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, and from 2000. And
Now
if
you
I
just
were
need a
to
ceramic.
yeah, if I were to get something, it would be a ceramic GMT, most probably, and it would be either this or a Batman, I think. But I just love the plain
Beautiful.
aesthetic of yeah. It's and the thing is also it has green on the dial as well. Yes, we call it black after Archie, but I think that was always a nice touch
Mm.
that they did that, brought out
The,
this
the
model,
green
and they did
hand, arrow hand.
yeah with the green GMT hand. So it's all black, but has that touch of Rolex on it. It's very recognizable, but also very singular in its own way.
It's an amazing watch, and I really love it. And I'll find that close up photo. That close up photo I did send to Archie to show
I
you, and
really love it, and I'll
he
find.
mentioned it when he.
Sorry about that. That was my mistake.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I thought it was my bad connection playing up. Yeah. So that's a nice watch. I love that watch, and again, when you find a watch on the website, you just gotta take it.
Yeah, I think that's it. You know, I have again, we were talking about some deals that we passed and that passed us by, and it was usually um, at those moments when I was looking for a steal rather than a deal. So sometimes, you know, when you're educated, when you have the knowledge of the market and you think it's at the right price, it's gotta
Yes,
hurt. It might hurt, but if you can actually afford it, it's always best to get it then and there and worry about it later, especially when it comes
and,
to Rolex.
and this is a watch I bought. I had bought my wife her BMW. I basically refinanced the home loan to make her happy to get the BMW that she always wanted, and
Mhm.
I bought this out of savings, and this really hurt because at that point I was just basically it was the whole COVID thing. Times were terribly tough, but there's some amazing deals. The BMW deals at the time were fucking crazy. Like people were so scared to buy at that particular time in the first year of COVID that the prices actually weren't for luxury goods. They weren't really doing what they are now. And I just had faith that things would work out all right. And I bought the GMT, then I bought the BMW, and then I found a watch again on that same website for the same shop.
Hmm.
And that was the next watch was the black face Daytona, the 116520.
So let's talk about that. And guys, I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I have to assure you, this is not scripted. We are not simply trying to present Plastic as a family man. That's how he comes across. He does have all these beautiful stories that goes with every single one of these watches. And here we come to the Daytona with the steel bezel. Tell me more about this cosmograph.
This is my for the steel bezel. Okay, as we know, there's the beautiful the ceramic bezel at the moment, which I think is defined by the panda. The panda really brings out the best in that look. And but pre-ceramic, the money was always the black face. Okay, the
Mhm.
money was always the black dial. In my opinion, always had that striking feature and just an amazing look. And remember, Rolex isn't about so much the movement. The Rolex is about the style. The Rolex is the look of the watch. I think
Yes.
people who understand Rolex understand that it's the look. I don't know if you agree with me, but I just think that Daytona just looks absolutely amazing. And when I saw it in there, it had I'll tell you the price at the time. It was 28.8 Aussie,
Mm.
which would probably equate to about oh, low 20s, high teens, maybe about 1920 US at the time.
Hmm.
And this was November 2020. And I moved heaven and earth to get this watch. I went deep into refinance on the home loan. I did all that. I just moved heaven and earth to get that watch.
Yeah.
And I was so happy when I got it, man. I went into see Ronnie. He's the owner of the company in his watch co.
Yes.
And I came in just after closing time. I negotiated an extra $800 off once I got in there, and he pretended he didn't have the watch. He said, "What are you here for?" And then he smiled. He pulled out the watch, and he said, "Look, you're a big guy. You may not like the way this wears." You know what I said to him, Lord?
Yeah.
I said, "It's a fucking Daytona, man. I'm not letting this go. I don't care." And it wears small, um, but I don't give a fuck, mate. It's my watch. It can wear as small or as big as it wants. I don't give a shit, and I don't care what other people think.
That's it.
It's my fucking watch, and I love it. And full set, complete. And it's also getting a service through Rolex because it had a winding issue that became apparent towards the end of last year,
Hmm.
and I could have taken it back and made a fuss with Ronnie, but I thought, you know what, he would fix it if I really pushed him. But I thought, you know what, I want to get a full Rolex service anyway. He looked after me on the deal. He's always looked after me. I'm just going to send it to Rolex, and they can fix it all up. And it's just a slightly bent stem, but it came back. The actual service quotes Rolex don't charge that much. I mean, compared to any other watchmaker, I think to get a Daytona service for about $1,000 Aussie is a pretty good deal. So, and that's Rolex service, and it's in there now getting a service. And I fucking love that watch, mate. I can't wait to get it back. I'll definitely be wearing that one for a while as soon as it comes back because it's going to come back fresh. It's going to come back with the GMT all fresh, polished, and looking $1 million, and I can't wait to put some scratches on it. That's how I think.
And I just wanted to say one thing about how you put, um, your weight on the side of the aesthetic aspects of a Rolex watch. Of course, we care about the robustness and reliability of the movement. Of course, with the more contemporary models, we appreciate the extended power reserve. But at the end of the day, if you're wearing a Rolex, consciously or subconsciously, you want a recognizable watch. You want a watch that looks like Rolex. And when it comes to the pre-ceramic Daytona, I completely agree. This is a watch that is that has the Rolex DNA, that carries the Rolex DNA most visibly on its sleeve, but it still has those beautiful accents on the subdials, and of course the red writing of the Daytona. And I think it looks very beautiful. Again, I'm not a chronograph person. Not only do I not have used to them, as uh, most of us don't, I also find the dials a little too busy. But I wouldn't kick this Daytona out of bed for eating crackers.
It's a great watch. It's absolutely amazing. And I love it, and I can't wait to get it back. And that moves us along into my journey into the. So how many are we now? We're at are we at three?
This is number four.
Wow, fuck, moving right along. So now we roll into 2021.
Hmm.
This is what I called that. We call the Daytona was my first hype watch, but because it was pre-ceramic,
Hmm.
we have to still uh, we can't really say it's my entry into the hype Rolex because it was a superseded watch. Okay, so 2021 was the year of the hype for plastic, and the first hype piece that I came across or that I desperately wanted was the Sermon, and this was a time of great upheaval in my life. I was uh, finding myself more and more maligned on the Archie show as Marco, JJ, and Tim took hold. Tim to a lesser extent, but mainly JJ and Marco took hold of the show. Um, and I was calling out some of their behavior as, um, you know, taking advantage of the pontiff, starting to put more emphasis on their burgeoning career and the fact that they were getting egos. And I also had a near fatal car accident after taking the pontiff to lunch one day on the way home. On the way home, I was rear-ended and nearly killed in a car accident, and all while I was wearing this watch, this Cermet that I recently acquired, and it was an amazing time. I had some crypto that also went to the moon, and I was able to pay off the home loan for the BMW, the redraw that we got. I was able to pay all the money back into the account and throw some extra savings on top and buy the first of my hype pieces, being the Summit. And it was an amazing time, Lord. It was a time of the start of the soy war. This watch represents
Soy Wars, yes.
the
Look, I
start
mean,
of the soy war. This watch
the
is representative of that time.
the beautiful thing is that this watch carries a certain weight in memories, and most of them, as you described them, were quite negative at the time. You felt maligned and misunderstood. You survived a near fatal accident, but at the end, you are now on the hither side of all that evil and malice, and you are a better man for it, and you are better respected for it in the community as well.
It was an amazing time, Lord. It was getting kicked out of WhatsApp groups for speaking my truth. Um, being banned from my pontiff's own streams for speaking the truth. We see some of the guys who run some of the chats or are in the chats now, and and they like to reminisce about the times that when how they are looking for the soys now, but this was when the Archieverse was controlled by the soys. It was not a fun place to be if you're a man, a Rolex man with an opinion. Sovron as well was lurking in the shadows, and but together with Sovron, we mounted the what we call fight back, and we fought back with the sermons, various other tools of the trade, what we now call plastic warfare, and we wrestled control of the chat. And once you win the chat, you win the stream. And once we had the stream back, we were very happy. And
You know,
and
one of the things that I love about your sermons and about your um, treatises, about your pamphlets, about your manifestos, they're infinitely quotable, and you have these one-liners that you can pick from them. One of them that I really love is that a stream is won and lost in the chat, and I always live by it since I have been running live streams. I learned.
yes, a stream is that's right. So it all starts and ends in the chat. And if look, a healthy chat will create a healthy show. Um, we have recently been. We're not going to go into your struggles with MT. We don't want
No,
to
no,
go there, but
no struggles there. I still
no.
support uh, that channel. I'm just
But
not.
there was a soy agent who was cast amongst us. We know who that person was. You had a recent falling out with that person, that known loyalist of another YouTuber. He doesn't hide who he is, but he was placed there to create drama and to create trouble.
Yes, of course.
And now that you're not there, in some ways, he has had a victory. I just want to leave it at that. I'd love to see. I would love it if you would find your way back there occasionally as a guest star, but that's up to you, my friend. It's totally your decision. So I
It's
just
too early. It's too early to say. Um, yeah, it's too early to say.
I just don't want to see that other side win, because I think that was their motive, was to disrupt and to create um, almost like a suicide mission. And
Um, Ultimately, I'm happy that you were able to restore the Holy See through your plastic warfare, um, and I'm happy to be, part of the satellites in the Archieverse or the system, whatever you want to call it. I call it the Archieverse.
oh,
Uh,
you are now one of the mainstays. You've been you look you've been there's many discussions with Sovron and people who we know care about the chat, and who you three and Fat Ben were the three people that had come from had been delivered from the heavens to help moderate and take the show into the next phase. And no matter what happens to Plastic or Sov or any of the other, we were small players in the ultimate side of things. You are now a fixture, and you are much respected, and you deserve to take that chat forward. And I just hope that the other guys, um, if they're not back already, if they do come back to help moderate that chat, um, because it's a wonderful chat. when it's running well, and we like having you there, and it's great to hopefully get those other guys back as well, because I think Three Hand and Fat have gone for a while. I haven't noticed them too much. I don't actually get to look at the chat much. Sometimes I'm driving when I'm listening to
They,
the
they
show.
are
Or
they're back moderating on Watch Nicholas's channel, which we can talk
yes,
about later as well. But I do appreciate your support. I do appreciate your encouragement and all
yes.
these nice things that you said about me that I probably don't deserve. But thank you, Plastic.
Now you've carried yourself well. You're starting off your own channel, but you've done so with grace and respect, and you haven't Archie, it's going to drop the link, Archie. Yeah, I'm going to go stream now, Archie. You haven't looked like you're laying there, like a cheap whore while someone has his way with you, and then jump on and come alive on your own stream. You are consistent through Archie's stream and your own stream, Lord, and that's what a man should be. You're respecting where you came from, and with that, you're getting a lot of respect from others who are trying to help you build your own channel as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know any other way. But again, thank you. Which one should we discuss next?
Well, the next was so times were good. The crypto crap was flying. Everything was going great. I was in and out of the Archie sphere. I was doing what I could to try and make things right with Sovereign, of course. Sovereign and myself copped a lot of shit, but together um, we battled hard. And the next watch I picked up again. This was from a different grey market dealer. This guy's no, we lovingly call him. Archie calls him the Flipper. I call him Hoff. He's a great guy, and his pricing is excellent. And he procured a Batgirl for me, okay, and a beautiful Batgirl it was. Brand new stickers, as was the Sermon, brand new stickered. Very, very happy with that watch. And I love it. It's in the safe at the moment. I don't keep these watches at home if I can help it, because I don't have a safe at home. So I
Mhm.
keep it in the city in a bank vault. And I learnt that trick from Archie, because he also keeps his majority of his watches in a bank vault in the city.
Hmm. Yeah, that's always a good idea, especially if you can't be quite sure of the security of your living quarters.
So this is a full set complete. I
And
paid.
you peeled off the stickers yourself, you said. Is that right?
Well, yeah, there was a couple of stickers on the case, a couple of stickers here and there. There was definitely a clasp sticker. It wasn't fully stickered, of course, because you'll never get a fully stickered watch from Rolex, but it had stickers. And it was a full set complete. I paid 24 Aussie, which I think is probably about 16, 17 US, something like that. And this was back in May last year. So I got these quite quickly. I got the Sermon, then I got the Batgirl. It's done extraordinarily well on obviously as an investment, but mainly I bought this as a hype piece because I love hype sports Rolex, and I got this for me. But the other side of the coin, Lord, has done extremely well as an investment, and I'm very proud to own this watch. I had to get 2 extra links, which I got from Rolex. I took it in and said, "Hey guys, I got this new watch." And I did the same with the Sermon. They gave me an extra link for the Sermon because I'm a big guy, so I got an extra 2 links. Love it. Wore it daily. And in July last year um, came my crowning glory, Lord. My crowning ever, my absolute zenith, pardon the pun, of my watch collecting has been the watch that I'm wearing now. The most, in my opinion, the most amazing Rolex sports watch ever made. Sovereign also loves this watch, and we have collectively coined it the Daytona Killer. That watch is the 126710 BLRO affectionately known as the Plepsy. Full set complete, 2018, Mark I bezel, which is known for its pinky and purpley hue, also believed to have been lifted off the white gold Pepsis of the time. That's and a very limited run of less than 12 months on these Mark I bezel inserts. It's a July 18 example, so not long after they were released. It's a beautiful watch, Lord, and I wear it every day. And I don't think I'll ever take this watch off. It's just an amazing piece, and I believe it is the greatest Rolex sports watch of all time.
The I did want to ask something about your Batgirl, but I think it goes for this as well, since they're both on the Jubilee.
Yeah.
I know some people are again very insistent on the origins of this watch, on its DNA that, of course, contains the oyster, but it's also been famously worn on Jubilees throughout history. Of course, Dustin Hoffman's character on Marathon Man wears a Pepsi GMT on Jubilee.
Is it safe? Is it safe?
How
Is it safe?
how do you think it compares in terms of the wearing experience, in terms of the aesthetics? What do you prefer, the Jubilee or the oyster on a GMT? Because you're kind of a master, if you pardon the pun, of GMT masters. You have 3 of them in your collection, and I kind of associate you with Pepsi more than anything, because you have previously made sweet love to it on screen on
Yes.
these live streams.
I've orally copulated with my Pepsi. Yes, I'll happily admit that. Live on every stream I've been on, I've done that. And
so what do you think about
which
the
basically,
Jubilee?
if you're listening, what the Jubilee bracelet, in my opinion, in my very humble opinion, is the greatest bracelet ever made. It's much more comfortable than an oyster. It suits the GMT because of the cosmopolitan nature of the watch, the
Mhm.
international air of mystery of the watch, the fact that you are, jetting around the world. And it's quite ironic that I picked these GMTs up during COVID lockdowns, but that's the beauty of it. It is the dream of being on a plane, the dream of jetting around the world and going from New York to Hong Kong, Paris to Rome, with my GMT on my Jubilee and Pepsi bezel insert is just amazing. And the Jubilee is the bracelet for this watch. It has a lower profile case than a chunky Submariner or a Sea Dweller. Okay, it has a very slim profile for the watch that it is, and in my opinion, the Jubilee makes this watch the most the most beautiful,
Mhm.
wearable, versatile Rolex sports watch ever made, hands down. And I can say that from experience, having owned the Daytona, the Submariner, the black GMT on an oyster. I can say that from experience, having also owned the Datejust 2 on an oyster. The Jubilee is by far, hands down, the greatest bracelet of any Rolex, in my opinion. And if they
I
put out a Daytona on a Jubilee, I would fucking buy it in a heartbeat.
I like the way you put it, because, of course, in addition to the uh, experience of wearing a Jubilee, which is airier, in a way more comfortable than the oyster, I think it also brings out some of the more precious aspects, rather than the utilitarian aspects of a Rolex sports watch. So in a way, it makes it shinier, it makes it more eye catching, and it makes it more, it makes it dressier in a way than sportier. But of course, this is a watch that has such strong DNA of a sports watch. It's never gonna take that over. So I think it's a great balance in terms of the aesthetics, in terms of how wearable it is, and in terms of how it is a little bit unconventional. Again, it's extremely recognizable as a Rolex, but it has that unique touch in the bracelet. And and what you said about how this watch has been associated with travel and air travel, intercontinental travel especially.
From
Um,
New York to Hong Kong.
and that's the thing, it's really about the dreams that these kinds of material objects give us to dream, the aspirations that they spark. And Rolex is the ultimate aspirational watch, right? All these
Yes.
elements of history and mythology that are bound to particular models are mostly not things that we actually realize in our lives, but they do add some value, some significance, some uh, in additional excitement to whatever it is that we actually do in our lives. It's a wonderful way of describing that.
And I've been lucky enough to see the new Pepsi on a Oyster, and I saw that at the obviously AD's now getting what they call display models only. They're fully functioning Rolexes that they have on display, but you can look, but you can't touch. Okay, this is the new way apparently. But I went in and had a look at one on an Oyster, and Lord, it is beautiful,
Mhm.
absolutely gorgeous, as is all Pepsis. Um, and I tried it on, and I thought this is just a beautiful watch. But in my very humble opinion, having owned the Oyster, having owned the Jubilee with the GMT, I believe that this watch is built to be on a Jubilee. I just think it just fucking works, mate. And you wear it everywhere. You wear it swimming. You wear it playing with the kids, or wearing it at work, or whatever I do. I wear this watch, and you never notice any scratch blemish on the bracelet because they do not show on a Jubilee. And that to me
Mm.
keeps this watch looking almost brand new every single day I own it. And whenever I'm in the sunlight and it catches on the bracelet and it just flickers off the bezel, it's just like, fuck, mate, I love this watch, man. I I hands down, this is my favorite Rolex watch in my collection. And this is the watch that if you are new to Rolex, or if you are ready to buy a hype piece and you've got the money and you don't want to wait and buy it from an AD, or if you're lucky enough to get from an AD, great. But if you really want a Rolex and you're happy to pay over market, pony up and get the Pepsi on the Jubilee. That's where I stand on it. Um, I just I just love it, man. And I I've never felt this connected to a Rolex watch. And I know it sounds crazy, but unless you know Rolex, you know the connection that you feel. And
Yes.
I feel it with this watch. And I know people think that you know, Rolex watches are to be I don't know. Hard to see. Some people collect and they never wear, right? I like to wear them, okay?
Absolutely.
I like to wear the shit out of them, and when the time comes, this watch will get a service, and it'll get a polish. I'm not a man afraid to polish my watches because I want them to look beautiful, mate, and I'm going to wear the shit out of it until the time comes in 5 years' time that it needs a service, and that's where I stand. This is my all-time favorite watch. It has cemented in my mind my love for the GMT. I absolutely adore this line, and my next watch, my grail, as you will, that I'm desperately trying to get at retail is the root beer rose gold. And Even though it's on an oyster, I'd love it to be on a Jubilee. I'll take it happily on an oyster. But man, if they put that watch on a Jubilee, I would be even more happy to have had that as my Rolex exit watch, so to speak. So that, my friend, is my Grail Rolex, is my desire, burning, overwhelming desire to own a root beer rose gold Rolex. What do you think of that, mate?
I love it. I love it because um I have the 80s Clint Eastwood nipple dial
Oh, I
uh,
love that watch of yours. Oh,
bimetal root beer, and I love that watch to death. That for me was the first watch I bought for myself,
yeah,
and it was at a time where the 80s were absolutely uncool, and that wearing a two-tone watch was unacceptable, frowned upon, looked down upon.
yes.
And I wore it. I wore it with pride because it was my watch, and
Mm,
I'm still very happy to have it in my collection. So and the funny thing is, of course, the gold in both the two-tone and the full gold pieces of root beer at the time, of course, is yellow gold. But since yellow gold over time oxidizes and ages in a certain way, it does take a pinkish hue. So
mm.
I think one thing they got right when they were bringing out this model again was to go with Everose rather than their own brand of yellow gold.
Oh, it just pops with the bezel. It just, it just pops, Lord. I just love it, man. Like this is the oh, I'm just frothing. There's a term in Australia we say we're frothing. I'm frothing at the thought of having this
Yeah.
watch on my wrist at some point. Then it will become a rotation between my Pepsi and my rose gold. And I know it's crazy. I've got these other hype pieces stashed away, which I'll never sell. They are for my children to fight over my corpse when I die. My rotting, fly blown corpse. They will fight over my watches, and that's fine. Okay, because I won't give a fuck when I'm dead, mate. And but I will not sell these Rolexes. Okay, and my children, hopefully they will collect and scavenge and find the ones that they like, and then they will also hang on to those until the day they die. That's my dream. That's my dream. Um,
Yeah, the thing is, I will say this. When it comes to everything else, right, even the sub, I can see the appeal of like I just saw, for example, on a stream, a gentleman who has a very similar four-digit sub to mine, but on a Jubilee bracelet. So
yes,
even that as a unique look, I appreciate. I have a great deal of love for Submariners on Jubilee bracelets, GMTs on Jubilee bracelets, especially when they are, Pepsi or Coke or Black, um, Batgirl, whatever else you want to call it, Plepsi. But when it comes to the root beer, um, I have to say that that watch belongs on a Jubilee. It's just the whole 80s. Uh,
me, I totally 100% agree with you, Lord. And
has
I,
to has to have the Jubilee. I know, for example, they used to
mm,
have for the later five-digit reference 16, 7, 13. They had beautiful two-tone oyster bracelets with the gold running all the way through the clasp and everything. And I know a
yes,
lot of people appreciate them. To me, keep those for the bluesies. Keep those for the two-tone submariners. Give me my root beer on a Jubilee bracelet. I
yes.
can't take it any other way.
And I think if you may be leaning towards my line of thinking that this truly magnificent line of watches deserves to always have the option of being on a Jubilee. Leave it up to the ultimately leave it up to the buyer. If they want to
Yes.
make a choice, if they want to present a watch with a choice of bands, this has to be the watch. Because in my opinion, it works just as well easily on a Jubilee and an Oyster, and I prefer it now on a Jubilee. And definitely with the gold, it would look absolutely killer to have that watch on a Jubilee rose gold bracelet. And I think, Lord, as well, when you look at the modern GMTs, they've got that lovely flat profile underneath. The case is quite flat.
Yes.
When you compare it to a subby, it's quite chunky, and that flat profile sits beautifully on the wrist and is completely accentuated and balanced by a Jubilee bracelet. It just makes it perfect, in my opinion. It just hugs the wrist perfectly, and I've got huge wrists, and I just love wearing this Rolex on a Jubilee. And that's my collection, Lord. There is one
Yes.
more watch one day I would love to get, being a Calatrava, Patek Calatrava. I won't go into the model details of that because that may change over time. But,
But
but
should
that
we
is
take
my
a look?
humble Rolex collection.
Should we take a look at the watch you showed me
Yes,
yesterday?
yes, this would be my ultimate simplistic Rolex Calatrava. I
Oh,
think
you mean Patek?
Patek.
Yes.
Sorry, I've just got Rolex on the brain. I'm a
I know
Rolex.
you have unquestionable loyalty to Rolex.
Rolex, please. That's the one. Look at that.
Yes.
Look at that.
5227 J for yellow gold, of course.
Yep.
It's a beautiful three-hander with the dates, sweep seconds, automatic movement, self-winding,
It's got
324.
everything a man needs. It's got a date. It's automatic. It's got the officer's back. That what they call the officer's back? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, officer's case back. Yes.
I
The,
love that.
I really like the design of this watch because yes, it is a dress watch. It is a thin dress watch. It's as simple as it comes, as you said. It has everything you need, but nothing more and nothing less. But what's really cool about this watch is that in addition to that beautiful dial, it has the design of the lugs, I think, spectacular. The curvature, the scalloped
Yes.
sides. Um, it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. And here is the case back that you can pop up to examine the movement, which is beautifully decorated in a way that behooves a brand that belongs to the Holy Trinity of Swiss watches. That wonderful gold rotor, um, the large one, that it's just something to behold.
This is the watch I want my family to know, to be known as Grandpa's watch. You know, this
Yeah.
is the grandpa always has a watch. Okay, this is what I want them to know as Grandpa's watch. And look, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that tongue in cheek as a bit of a nod to our pontiff, who says that the Calatrava is the ultimate Patek watch. And people joke that they are old fashioned and they are a bit of an old man's watch. But to be honest, I absolutely understand where he's coming from now with Patek. The Nautilus and the sports Pateks were never the bread and butter of the Patek lineup. It was always the Calatrava. And if
Yes.
you're going to have one Patek, in my opinion, it has to be a gold Calatrava.
Look, I mean, here's the thing. What did we say about Rolex and Oyster cases at the beginning? That
Yes.
That is what defines the brand. That's what makes it visually recognizable, and that's what established the grounding of the brand in building robust and utilitarian watches that at least had a sporty aspect, even if they were executed in precious metals and with certain complications. With Patek, we have the Calatrava case. That is, I think, the peak of elegance when it comes to dress watches. And a lot of their more complicated watches are also executed in that same recognizable case shape of a Calatrava, and they are built on the same kinds of movements, with certain modifications, of course, with added complications. And this is the quintessence of the brand, that everything else comes after. This is the prime mover. This is the alpha.
That's right. For me, it's the alpha and the omega of the brand, in my opinion. I won't need another Patek. I don't lust after any Patek like I lust after Rolex, but this to me is a fitting end to my watch collecting journey. My root beer gold is my grail. This, I guess you would say, is my exit piece. This takes me to the end of the line in my collecting journey. And what an end that shall be.
Indeed. It's, I mean, and again, I don't, as someone who has aged quite terribly and looks like a grandfather with 0 kids, I do appreciate a nice dress watch. And again, I don't mind at all if someone calls this grandpa's watch. It's distinguished. It's
This is what I want it to be known as in my family, as Grandpa's watch. This is be the watch that I celebrate the birth of my grandchildren with. This is the one. Either this, obviously, Patek may end this line, but there will always be another, or I will seek out this particular watch. But this will be the watch that signifies the final phase of my life on this planet, and I will affectionately coin it Grandpa's watch.
And the thing is, like, you know, in this, it's just a photograph, right? But
yes.
I can look at these scalloped Cote de Genève decoration on the bridges, like these engine turned decorations here on the rotor and on the very sides of the movement, you know, by the case. It's just, you know, even from a photograph, which is supposed to be digital and lifeless, there's so much to adore and admire about this.
Patek do the best product photographs of all watches. Like their website, their photos on their websites are magnificent.
I think so. They certainly know how to present a product.
It brings it to life. I mean, you can almost feel that watch in your hand. You know, it's just a beautiful looking thing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, I can't read Saad's comment. Would you mind reading that for me, Lord?
Of course. Saad says, "Hi all. This is the watch I would, or you would want to get buried with." And MLMJ says, "Or get caught in the brothel with."
Definitely, as Grandpa, I might have to. Look, I'm a one dog, one bone sort of guy. I will never stray. But if I were to stray, definitely. But I'm a one woman man, and my wife is my everything. So there'll be no romping in brothels for me.
Of course. But there's nothing wrong in imagining wearing a Calatrava when you meet your maker. I think
100%.
That's not a bad scenario.
100%. But definitely, I won't let the children bury me in this watch.
GB Vol pushes back a little bit. So, with your permission, I will read his question to
Of
you.
course.
Why would it be Grandpa's watch when you don't give a shit about it and the GMT is your favorite?
It's being my final watch in my watch collecting journey, and this shall be known as the Plastic Grandpa's watch, the watch that he shall wear at christenings, the watch that he shall wear at confirmations, and hopefully he may be able to wear this watch at the wedding of one of his grandchildren. That is my dream. And without dreams, my friends, we are nothing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, again, I find a lot of similarities in our journeys. In many ways, I am also a Rolex man, but I'm fascinated with one or two other models when it comes to certain brands. When it comes to Audemars Piguet, I'll always be in love with the original Royal Oak, the Jumbo in any iteration. Uh, he really sparks my fancy. I would love to own one day if I can get it at a reasonable price. I'm Doesn't matter how much money I have, plastic. I'm always a bargain shopper. I need to get a
Yes,
deal. I need to get a discount. So when the
yes,
market is crazy like this, I always go for models that are still affordable, that still punch above their weight, so to speak.
yes.
I'm also in love with Gégé Lecoutre as a brand, and
Of
especially the
course, we as we know. I saw
Blro.
that watch the other day. Beautiful piece.
Yeah, thank you. And so when I think of owning a precious metal watch, I've always thought that it would be a gold sub, and I don't even care about having it on a full bracelet as long as the case is in impeccable condition.
Oh, a vintage on a leather strap would just be beautiful, you know?
Yeah, like a nipple dial, especially the
Oh,
Stallone, so to speak, that
yes.
as we like to
With
affectionately call it
with
with
a missing pip.
right, that's right. Sliced Stallone Gold Submariner. Um, the of course, as much as I still love that, um, I have now that I've owned the Reverso for a little more than a week now, like for about 12 days. I have been barely able to take it off my wrist. And even, you can try. Of course, you should never buy a watch, if you ask me, just due to the hype, without even trying it on, without going through, shuffling through, examining and experimenting with different iterations of the model, especially for a model like the Reverso that has so many different case sizes, complications,
Mm.
and models. Uh,
Verso definitely wouldn't buy that sight unseen.
of course not. But the thing is, it's yet another layer of experience when you own a watch and actually wear it through the day. Even one day, it gives you a different experience. It gives you a different dimension of the watch. So even though this has been my dream as a precious metal watch, um, and I would never quite give up on it, I'm warming up more and more to the idea of getting reversos in precious metals because they just present such a great deal, such no brainer to get something like that, either in ultra thin, which is even a higher level of a dress watch, as iconic as a steel stunner is
And look,
the
I
reverso.
I
Of
just want to just say one thing.
course.
Don't worry about your wrist size. Don't worry about the size of the watch. If you ultimately fall in love with reversos and you want to build a reverso collection, then you're going to have to go for reversos that may wear a little bit small. Um, you know, but be like Archie. You know,
Oh yeah,
fuck
and
what other
also,
people think. It's your watch. It's
The
your
Ultimate
wrist.
doesn't wear small at all. Actually, it has the same case size, or in fact, like slightly, only marginally smaller case size than the Grand Date that I have now.
Yes.
But they are compared to the Grand Date, especially with its complications, it's almost 12 millimeters in thickness, whereas
Yes.
the ultra thin is right under 7.5. So it
Yes.
really is like the most discreet, sleek, and elegant wristwatch. It slides under any sort of cuff or long sleeve, and I would love to own one day, especially if I can't find a gold sub the way I would like one.
I definitely see you as a vintage Rolex guy, Lord. I know you are progressing through the decades, but I think to see a vintage Rolex gold sub on a strap would just be amazing and would suit you to a T, my friend.
Mm,
No box, no papers, just the watch. For you, I see you finding if you find that watch, it doesn't have to have anything other than being in great condition from a trusted dealer and a watch that you will wear with pride.
exactly, exactly. That's the thing, because it's a watch that I would want to wear. I don't care if it's precious metal. I don't care if it's gold.
Mm,
I wear all my Rolexes, and I know it's mostly steel Stanners and
yes,
root beer, but I would treat this watch the same. And I do also. I know Alex, the watchmaker, berates me for it a little bit, but I like popping out the bracelets. That's one of the things I love about the vintage Rolexes, that they have holes case, and you can use
mm.
toothpick simply to pop out the bracelet and put it
Use a
on.
toothpick so it doesn't scratch the metal.
Exactly.
That's the trick.
And it takes 15 seconds. I just on yesterday night's live, I changed the bracelet, the riveted oyster bracelet, to a NATO strap in 15 seconds with
You
the help
like to
of.
tinker, which is a nice thing.
I do. And I like preserving those bracelets, right? That's why my case for the sub, which I will never get polished because it's my dad's watch,
Yeah,
uh, is in an even more uh, well-worn condition than the bracelet, because after I got it um, straightened out and tightened again by Michael Young in Hong Kong, they said they want to do a light polish on it as part of that service.
beautiful.
I said, why not?
Of
Do
course,
but
of
I'm gonna
course.
continue wearing and not.
Anyone who has an ancient or a vintage or neo vintage watch and sees polishing as some sort of a negative, in my opinion, that person is a delusional fantasist. Having a watch unpolished, especially a neo vintage or vintage watch unpolished, is akin to marrying a 40-year-old divorcee and expecting her to be a virgin. Austin, if you're listening, in my opinion, Austin, you are a delusional fantasist when it comes to your obsession with unpolished pieces.
Well, I mean, look, I actually like Austin quite a bit since I got to talk to him in person, so to speak, on a panel. And we all have, again, going back to that point of Rolex being the ultimate aspirational watch, we all have our delusional fantasies that are
Of
connected
course,
to these watches. And if Austin's and if the fantasy of certain other vintage collectors is precisely that, um, I'm not gonna die on that hill, because for me, again, I don't care if it's polished or unpolished. If the case is thick and not polished down to a toothpick at the lugs,
thick, juicy
I'm,
lugs.
Exactly. So for me, that's the most important thing. If I really obsess about it in a given piece, I know exactly the right people. No CNC machine involved. They just
No.
do the official factory finish on a well-worn watch. And because of the way they apply those bevels and chamfers, um,
Mm.
it just looks like the original, and it looks really bigger than it
And if you
is.
don't have the thick, juicy lugs, talk to someone like Alex, who's happy to put a blob of steel and thicken those lugs.
And we have
Can
them.
be done.
We have them. We have those kinds of places in the jewelry district at downtown Los Angeles as well.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it's a certain kind of style. Saad says, "I love polished stuff. I love my shoes polished well too." I think it's a mood really for me. I like the reverso, right? That's
Yeah.
yes, it is stainless steel. Yes, it has its origins as a sports watch. The mythology, that's great. It's a lovely story about the game of polo. But in its platonic ideal, the reverso comes in a high polish because it's supposed to be dressy, it's supposed to be eye-catching. Doesn't matter if it's precious metal or not, it is supposed to gleam. Um, for me, that's why I actually have, just like I have a little dust cloth for my shades, for my sunglasses that are made by Luxottica. Um, I always carry a cloth for them, and
Did
when
you
I
buy
wear my,
those sunglasses from a approved retailer?
of course, who actually give
That's the only way to buy sunglasses. You don't want to be buying sunglasses from unlicensed fools
absolutely.
and
And
luxury hooligans.
And if you are actually a decent enough person who treats your fellow human being well enough, they actually give you a nice discount on the retail pricing as well. Uh,
Yes,
it's an idea, you know. We again, I love a good deal myself. I am a comparison shopper, but I would rather have the peace of mind to deal with someone face to face and know exactly what I'm getting. In this case, box and papers and everything else that comes with the watch.
exactly.
That with the glasses. So with the reverso, I carry that piece of cloth with me, and as I go through the day, when I see all these smudges and whatever else that I put on it, when I was tinkering and flipping the case over to look at the movement, when I'm wearing my sports Rolexes, and I'm wearing, to your honor, I'm wearing my GMT Master today, the 5-digit,
Beautiful,
the Coke.
beautiful. I love Diego's Coke, by the way.
Mm,
When it came back from that service, it just popped. That's a beautiful watch.
it
You
really is.
shouldn't be popping that bezel out so much, though. Don't pop the bezel insert out too much, or you'll fuck it up.
I do it seasonal. With my root beer, what I did.
Yes, but not every second day.
No,
It's not. It shouldn't be a party trick.
right. I wear it on the all brown bezel for the most part, and then once every
Yes,
so often, especially when it gets sunnier outside, when it's summer, I change it into the two-tone root beer bezel, and I really enjoy that watch that way too. This will be the same. I will change into the black bezel once every so often to have a more muted all black aesthetic. But I do enjoy it the way it basically matted out to almost a navy blue on the black, and like a dusty rose or a certain shade of pink on the red. It's just beautiful with that egg white patina on the index markers as well.
fantastic watch.
I really love it. And I think, actually, this is the best compromise for coming from either side of the contemporary and vintage spectrum. You get a late 90s Rolex 5-digit pre-ceramic. They have modern movements. If you go late enough, they have the solid end links, and if it's not too late, they still will have the no holes case. So all that modularity, all that vintage appeal that comes with a certain aging and patina will be there, but you will have a very reliable watch that you can get through the day with without having to complain about the jingly jangly jubilee, which I actually love wearing. So it's it's a certain feeling. So when I wear my sports watches, I don't care if they are banged about. I don't care if there are a few smudges on the sides. I do care about the crystals. But again, that's why I like the plastic crystals, because they don't get those fingerprints and smudges so easily. They just
Yes.
get this dusty, musty old feel,
Cloudy
which
patina.
right, which is my shtick after all. So that's how I came
Yes,
on.
Lord, you have certainly found your place, and you have carved it out with a chisel and a hammer. And there's no denying you are now an integral part of the YouTube universe, in particular, seated at the table of the Archieverse. And you will be there long after I am gone and forgotten, because you, Lord, shall live for the ages, my friend.
Thank you, Reverend. Thanks for blessing this channel. Thanks for being, giving me really the privilege and pleasure for doing a collection review for you. This has been an incredible experience for me, and I will not forget it for a long time to come. So I really appreciate your help and support. Guys, I know it was too early for Plastic. He really genuinely made a sacrifice to be on here. So God knows how grateful I am for him. And I don't want to take much more of his time. So we are going to wrap it up here. If you liked this collection review, please like and subscribe and tell all your friends. I will see you in the next stream. But before then, you can use that same email address to send me suggestions for new topics. If you want a collection review done for you, I'm still doing it for free for some time to come. If you want any of my advice for future purchases, same thing. If you're feeling generous, you can still use Lord Hellespont v@gmail.com for your PayPal contributions and for the Cash App LHVVV.
Thank you, Lord. I've had a wonderful time. You've gone through my collection, and we all love Archie, and I really respect you and thank you again. Thank you, Lord.
Are you sure? Did you have too much coffee? You're speaking a little fast paced today, Mike.
Oh no, this is me. This is Mike. Me and my CNC machine.
No, I've had a great time today. I've had a great time today, Lord. Thank you very much. And thanks for the free review, because I love free. Thanks, Lord.
And who doesn't? Who doesn't? Um, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here and being in the chat, and thank you, Plastic, once again for being such a great example for all of us in showing your
Oh,
loyalty.
fucking love you, Lord. I love you, man. I fucking really do, Lord.
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends.